Yay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. I am excited today because we're going to be going over some heavy topics, but we have a wonderful doc here who loves to talk about this, and she brings a holistic perspective to some of these very heavy topics. Now, postpartum depression, bouncing back from that, anxiety, bouncing back from that, post-traumatic stress disorders, bouncing back from that. That's what we're going to be talking about today. Like I said, it's going to be heavy, but we have a doctor who is an expert, and she is going to bring this very holistic approach and how she's doing that within this wonderful conversation. All righty, let me tell you about my doc for today. All righty, so she is a graduate of the West Virginia School of Osteopathic Medicine. She did her family medicine internship at the UCSF Fresno location. Then she completed her family medicine residency at Arnot, Ogden Family Medicine in New York. Since then, she's done a myriad of things. She's been serving in DC in community clinics, in homeless shelters. She has done addiction treatment. She has treated those with those addiction treatment. And then she went on to become an expert within that field. From that, she's been a medical director at a methadone clinic. She's been treating those with opioid addiction. From that, she started and she founded some holistic well-being focused startups, such as Tripti-v, Transcendant You, and a nonprofit called Pacific Oasis Foundation. And live, and we're finding this is hot off the press. She is launching her online telemedicine, primary care, and addiction medicine business, which will be called Zanara Care. So she'll be able to give her holistic approach to those in primary care and addiction medicine. Who am I talking about? I'm talking about the one and only Dr. Sarah Nasir.
Hi.
Woo!
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here and so excited to be on Dr. Tamara Beckford's show. Dr. Beckford is just amazing. I just love that introduction. Thank you, Dr. Beckford. I mean, I need to record this, and every time I go on stage, I need to have this replayed. You know, this was an awesome, amazing introduction. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. And you know what, too? Amazingly, this is such a wonderful day because for those of us in the medical field, today's the day that we're celebrating Doctor's Day. So happy Doctor's Day to you.
Yay.
Dr.
Thank
Nasir,
you. You too.
To all of our fellow colleagues who are working throughout the world. All righty. You know, there's so many people who are inspired by the stories that we bring on here. And yours, I know, will be no exception to this. So I want to really start at the beginning. So tell us, what made you decide to go into medicine in the first place?
It was my mom. My mom was a doctor, and she was a doctor in a third world country called Bangladesh. And I saw the impact she made in the lives of her patients. And it wasn't just where, you go, you write a prescription and you leave, but it was more like she was respected, and she would sometimes bring patients, like we lived on top of the clinic. So it was like third floor and first floor. She would sometimes bring in a patient that needed more deeper counseling, and I admired that. First, I wanted to be an astronaut when I was little. And then my mom told me there is no other career that is more noble and gets more blessings from people and God than the career of medicine. And then it was like, well, who am I going to serve in the moon? So let me serve people on Earth. So that's how it started.
Yeah. I love it. You said, who am I going to serve on the moon? We're not there yet. Okay, I'll stay here and I'll do this noble profession here. Yeah. Wonderful. So mom was a doctor, and
Mhm.
she's been taking care of patients, and you're able to see the impact that she has on those who she's taking care of. You said even having to bring in someone who needed maybe extra care, extra counseling, and she
Yeah.
took the time. And she also expressed, like, how, like we said, noble this profession is, and how many blessings that we are able to give and receive at the same time. And you said, alrighty, there's none of that going on at the moon. I'm going to stay here and I'm going to be a doctor. But there's so many different specialties, and you chose family medicine. So go ahead and tell me why you chose that one.
Family medicine, because I really was drawn to the completeness of care, going from the cradle to the grave, where you're not just taking care of one disease,
Right.
right? You're taking care of a whole person, a whole family, a whole community, and eventually maybe a whole nation, maybe a whole generation that is the launching. So I love being at the crux of the moments that translate into something bigger. I
Right.
feel as a solo person, my impact might only be so much. But
Mhm.
if I'm able to do things that are influential and will propagate progress for others, then that's me becoming a giant. For now, I might be an ant on the shoulder of giants, but
Mhm.
going forward, I would love to have a hand in all the goodness that happens around me.
Wow. So starting and recognizing that you're able to impact throughout the entire generations, and where you're starting is just the beginning of the huge impact that you're
Yeah.
going to have and be able to leave on this earth. Wow. Like you said, I'm standing right now, might be an ant, but you recognize that as you get and you go further with all the skills and all the passion that you have, that you're really going to keep transcending and getting bigger and bigger, and
Yeah.
thus having a bigger and bigger impact on this world. Love it, love it, love it.
Thank
Alrighty, so we're there. Family medicine. How was residency? Tell us all about
Residency was a journey. It
it.
was it was a tough journey. I definitely went in realizing that I was gonna have to work my butt off. I
Mhm.
won't have a life. The 80-hour shifts plus, more. But I really went in thinking I'm gonna have a blast. It's gonna be an adventure. It was an adventure at the end of the day, but not the type of adventure that I was anticipating. I think a lot of us come into medicine with a desire to make a positive impact and change the world in a positive way.
Mhm.
And um, sometimes the way that our structure is set up, I think it doesn't train us the appropriate emotional intelligence on how to not only interact with each other and our patients, but also those who are guiding us and leading us.
Mhm.
So I had some complications during my internship year, and it didn't turn out to be a positive experience, like in some ways. The rest of it was amazing. I loved
Mhm.
the people around me for the most part, but I think the way that we're trained, there's a lot of unlearning that needs to happen to move towards a healthier training process where you realize that the interns that come into the field, they've never been doctors before.
No.
You might be a student who has been in the operating room and been in a trauma room, but until you have taken care of at least 10 patients and gone through the resuscitation process and whatnot, you know, to be held to that standard is reasonable because we are trying to become superhumans, but then we forget that we are at the end of the day humans, that we have
Mhm.
dreams, that we hurt when we're put down in a way that
Mhm.
becomes like an existential blow.
Right,
you know?
right.
So I kind of encountered that with some of the attendings and throughout my journey, and it wasn't just during my first year. But yeah, I think a little bit more training needs to happen for people who have power over
Mhm.
some vulnerable minds as they're becoming and growing and maturing, because that's what this process is. But other than that, I definitely went in and I learned a lot. But here's where the PTSD for me happened is that
Mhm.
After I encountered an adverse situation, and instead of going and finding the right help on how to recover from it, I just kept running. I just had my blinders on. I needed to move from one position to the other because I knew my ultimate goal was that I wanted to become a doctor and serve.
Right.
Despite how much I felt like I was wounded and I was hurting, I didn't take the time to take care of myself then, because it didn't feel like that was the time, or maybe there was time. I actually don't know if it would have made a big difference. Maybe if I had taken a little break to gather myself, but that didn't feel the right thing to do. So having that, type of environment, and my struggles were academic struggles, and it turned to something that was kind of turned against me, as if I'm a stupid person. If I've gone through engineering and I've gone into medical school and I've gone into residency, looking back, if I could tell myself that, I would tell myself, you are nothing stupid. You learn in your own way. And I love learning for the sake of learning. That's why I do everything that I do that brings me joy. Tell myself, believe in yourself, keep going. Like, I wish I could have gone back to myself and given myself that pat on the back, but it did lead to a lot of, silent self-harming. I think I was very close to not being here, just quitting medicine and just quitting anything. But over time, I think it does heal as time came and I got help afterwards. I think I've come out of it definitely more powerful, as more of a self-advocate, less embarrassed and less humiliated in who I am, because that process is what just adds to that burden. It did for me. I felt ashamed. So I didn't know who to go and ask for help. It's like, I'm not smart like the other doctors. The numbers don't show it. What will people say? I don't belong here.
There's so much to unpack with what you just mentioned, and let's see if we can gather some of this. Especially, I think that this is important. It's an important month in medicine overall. 2 weeks ago, there were thousands of medical students opened. Well, for us, it was opening an envelope. Now, opening their online envelope to find out where they're going for their residency training. So that just happened 2 weeks ago. Today is Doctors Day, where we celebrate, doctors and what they're doing. There's so much that goes on between being a medical student and then becoming a confident doctor. And part of that is the training. And you said the training in residency. Now, when you do start residency, as you mentioned, the ink is still drying on that medical degree. The ink is still wet, but you're now Dr. ABC. And when you start the training process, there's so many people who, like you said, who are in charge that have different styles for which they are teaching you. And some styles just does not mesh with the person. And some of it can be this autocratic, very demeaning. If you got the answer wrong, why are you even here? Are you sure you graduated from medical school? All of the things that in a fertile mind, a malleable mind, it can really bring that person to shrink versus to expand. And that's, some of the things that you're mentioning, that during those times, you're already doubting yourself. So if the support is not there and you're not getting that support, then the doubt plus the lack of support will have you feeling this level of stress, even going into depression. There's so many people who go into depression during residency. One of the things that you mentioned is that you kept running. You said instead of, dealing with it, you were running. And that's one of those fight or flight, right? So what did you do?
Yeah. Yeah, I kept running. I internalized it. Definitely, there was self-loathing. There was a lot of um, disconnect from my purpose, from God, who, God has been a very influential part of my journey and motivation. I
Mm-hmm.
stopped talking to God at that
Mm.
time, honestly, and I became very cynical. Um, because definitely I was hurting inside, but I was seeing it was happening around me still to others. Academic bullying, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just in residency. I've actually seen it in undergrad happen to a graduate student from a professor in physics. Like, you know I think that is an aspect we don't talk about. We don't we When we talk about all these burnout sessions that are going out for helping train doctors, like, it's not talked about. And that disconnect and misuse of power, in an impressionable mind like that, where we come in with high hopes of making a difference, and then to be put down, of your
Mm-hmm.
life's mission, then what is there to live for? And
Mm.
so, coming back to the question of, I was running, I knew I didn't want to be in that situation, in that type of environment. Definitely turned off a lot of my sensitivities that
Right.
made me a nice, approachable person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was
So you put
definitely,
up barriers.
yeah, I was definitely defensive. I didn't know who to trust. And this is a time, where people are trusting their lives to you. And
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know where it is a safe space to go and be vulnerable and be like, I don't know how to look up something. I don't know how to use up to date. I didn't know how to use up to date the first time I went, right?
Yeah.
And it's not something that should be put down, because you learn. And we're, as doctors, we're amazing learners. We learn
Yes.
on the go. It's, I think, how well you learn is something that needs to be emphasized and trained, because everybody can pick up the skills to learn.
Mhm.
And
Absolutely.
that, instead of like being like, oh, your GPA was this, your score was this, you know, I didn't get as, instead of like, how do you serve the patients? What do you bring to the table? Well,
Mhm.
I think that's the whole education system in general. It just keeps building. To get to this stage, we have to go through such cutthroat competition,
Mhm.
even at student level. What's your college GPA? Oh, it's not 4.0. Oh, you'll never get into medical school. you know,
Yes.
so for me,
It's very competitive, and throughout the phases that gets us to this point, you're always competing. So you're
yeah.
always in a mindset where you are, I need to be the best. I need to be the best. I need to be the best. Now,
And
one of the
nobody
challenge,
else can
yeah,
be as good as you. So that's the
absolutely.
very unhealthy competition, versus
Absolutely.
the competition that we need is that we raise the ceiling together, but we
Hmm.
also raise the floor. So everybody goes up. That's my personal approach to life. I'm in it for the experience, right?
Hmm. You're in
So
it for, yeah, in it for the experience and the long haul. So now, as you go through this process, is it safe to say that you felt burned out after residency?
I was burned out in residency.
In
I
residency.
remember one of my colleagues in cardiology. This was my first year when I was going through some like heavy things. He's like, Sarah, who turned off your light?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
when I started that class, we were having so much fun. And then some, academic challenges and
Mhm.
things were happening in the background with the department. And I just felt really hopeless, really depressed. I didn't know what to do. And, you know, um, yeah, yeah, I really felt like the light was snuffed out of me.
And others noticed it because that person asked you.
Others who I couldn't hold it around anymore, because, you definitely always want to look confident, unbreakable,
Hmm.
solid.
Hmm.
Because what I've noticed is that the weaker you are, or you appear, the more emotions you show. There's
Hmm.
a certain category of people who target that
Mm.
and they take advantage of that. And it's not just me that I saw this happen to. I saw this happen around me as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, as I said, it was not a time to pause. I had to keep running.
Wow. So now after residency, you've made it through despite all that you just, went through emotionally, running, you made it through. What's next in Sarah's life?
Yeah, this is a really difficult, oh goodness. I don't think I'm completely over it yet. It still comes back, it still haunts, but definitely I've come very far, put in a lot of distance. And next is to keep growing, to keep experiencing, and keep doing what I set out to do, is to make my life meaningful by impacting and uplifting others' lives.
Wow. So is that when you went to DC to start?
DC, I went because I was a National Health Service Corps scholar. That
Mm-hmm.
scholarship, I think, was probably what kept me from quitting residency. And it's amazing how life pans out. Because if I didn't have it, I think I would have just quit and become very depressed.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that's an amazing scholarship loan forgiveness program, depending on which one you get. I got the scholarship program. So um, I had to serve back the
Mm-hmm.
underserved community. And DC was one of the places where it was like the meeting point between where my husband lived and where I lived. So we were living apart for 8 years of the
Mm-hmm.
first years of our marriage. And DC was kind of where it was in close, like right there where he had a job, I had a job, and we started kind of living officially together in
Mm-hmm.
DC because there was that NHSC site. And there was this really amazing clinic formed by another, like, amazing soul, where they were serving different areas of the underserved area of DC. And you don't really realize how underserved DC is until you actually go there.
Mm-hmm.
So they took care of a large African American population in DC who definitely, with generational discrimination and systematic racism, you see the impact there.
Mm-hmm.
It was an eye opener for me. I've never lived in a largely predominant Black community before. I mean, I've lived across America. I love my life. I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced so much. Um, so I loved serving there, and they had homeless shelters as well. So I was able to negotiate that, hey, I want to do this. I see you have the homeless shelter. I want to give to that population. So put me in your clinics. So I would serve in the primary care clinic
Mm-hmm.
3 days a week, like the first part of the day. And the evenings of those 3 days of the week, I would go to either a men's homeless shelter or a women's homeless shelter. And it was an amazing experience.
Tell us what are some of the things that made that it's so. I look and I see when you talk about the last part of this conversation, your colleague asked Sarah, when did they dim the light? This part of the conversation, all I see is light.
Thank you. No,
You
I was
know,
definitely still healing at that point. I wasn't
yeah,
ready to talk about it. Anybody who reached out to me for help, like, I couldn't help them because it brought my trauma back. And I had a
yeah,
lot of fights with my husband at that time. Our marriage struggled. I almost lost my marriage because of everything that was happening because I brought it home. I didn't have anywhere else to
mm-hmm.
share it. But, being able to see the humanity again, being in contact with humanity, of being able to serve and hear the different stories, um,
Mm-hmm.
despite like the systematic problems in healthcare as well, where I felt like many times I felt that we were being asked to succeed in a setting of that's set up to fail us,
Mm-hmm.
and I think many employed doctors might experience that as well. So that's another problem. We can save that for another discussion. But the experiences that I enjoyed in the homeless shelters is, being able to see the women's, they were residents, so they could go out and come back and still have their beds. But for the men, if they were not in line by 5 p.m., they wouldn't get a bed. And
Mm-hmm.
so you see, how America is supposed to be a first world country, right? With everything just hunky dory for everybody. But it did remind me many times of my birth country in Bangladesh, which is a third world country, just to see how much struggle folks go through. Like, struggle to survival is real no matter where you go, especially if you don't have a community that is supporting you, helping you. And being there, the appreciation I saw from some of these patients just touched my heart. I remember having to change a wound on a patient, and she wasn't given enough pain management. And, you know, she has like a 6-inch deep wound that needs to be repacked. And I'm like, my dear, you need some medicine, like, to change this. And so, you know, I did prescribe her that, and she was very grateful, because when she's going to the ER or the urgent care, they're not paying her that much attention because they're overwhelmed with the patient. You don't have time to connect on a personal level there to hear their story. So, yeah, they became familiar with me. They knew where Dr. Nasir was. I had an amazing MA in the homeless shelters, and it just, I don't know what to say. Like, I got to see a different part of life, and it just impacted me. Like, it just added to my life. I took from it and embraced it.
Love, love, love. Wow. I was going to ask you, but what were one of the stories that was one of the stories that impacted you, but you just told us about even just, you know, a story that left a lasting impression, someone who left a lasting impression on you. So it looks like that brought back your joy for what it is. So all this hard work that you put in, you know, going through medical school, going through residency, you know, this is supposed to be a profession. Remember what mom said, where you get blessings. And throughout this entire time, it didn't appear that way. But then now you're getting the blessings back, you know, in the form of those who are underserved, underappreciated by society. You're able to give to them, and then you're getting this appreciation back from them. You know, thank you so much for looking at us as humans, for being the one who is, you know, will take the time to listen to me, you know, because my story is more than just that I'm homeless. There was something else that happened. I might be battling other things, you know, I might be running away from other things in order to be here. And I'm glad that I know that someone's there who will listen, and the trust. So now you didn't feel like you can trust anyone, but then now you're being trusted, like, wholly with these people. So now you were able to build back your trust and that connection that made you want to do medicine in the first place from this service. Wow, how powerful.
You're a very good summarizer, Dr. Becker. Like, that's a really nice loop and connection. But yeah, I think the humanity I had lost sight of was slowly coming back into me, definitely, as I kept going. And then, you know, my service requirements continued when I moved to California, and I continued to work in a similar setting, taking care of the unserved population, like the undocumented, largely Hispanic population in this town as well, where I am, before I moved into the methadone clinic. And that definitely also helped. But I just felt like that 15-minute restriction to no matter what comes through the door just didn't, it's not the best way for us to be able to impact a lifetime. You know, because every patient that comes to us comes with a lifetime of history behind them, and you can't always solve it in 15 minutes. And so that's kind of what transitioned me out of doing full primary care to focusing mainly on the addiction part. Because I think I've always felt called to show up where the need is the most, and serve in a way that I'm serving what's needed, rather than just, you know, well, that's fun too, where you just do things that bring joy and benefit to you. But for me, it's kind of two sides of the same coin. And so, when I was in my residency in New York, we were apparently on a chain, opioid transfer chain that went from Mexico up to Canada. And we were in one of the areas where that was like a pill mill, where the doctors were prescribing opioids, making patients happy. And so I got to see a lot of the devastation and frustration that was coming in with opioid until I had an amazing attending who sat down and told me, like I told him, why can't drug addicts just quit? Something is wrong with them. Like I had that stigma myself. And then my attending told me, but Sarah, do you realize that it actually changes you? It changes you physically. After a while, it becomes a chronic disease. It's just not something that's just a moral failure, that really changed my way of thinking. I kind of paid more attention to what he was doing, and he was an inspiration for me. And so now here I am, and I'm working with this population, and they need a lot of understanding and care, not just from all the doctors on their team, from the community as well. I'm glad that there's a shift happening in the dialogue against, patients who are suffering from opioid use disorder, because I guess in some ways I kind of see my story in them too, that something difficult happens in life to them. They don't know how to cope with it. They internalize all of that. And the only way for them to release when they don't have anybody to support them. I was blessed to have a family who didn't let me go, right? They held on to me. When I kind of ended up like letting go myself, like people came to hold on to me, but a lot of my patients don't have that. They're homeless, they're jobless, their family leaves them by giving them the ultimatum that either you give us love or you quit, or you choose us or you choose the drugs. And realizing that they need help, like their body, kind of like what I tell my patients is, imagine if you lost a leg, right? That's the type of change that happens neurochemically in your body, that it cannot close that chemical gap all on its own. So the reason that you're going and using is because your body is hurting. And so you're self-medicating with it. So what we're trying to do with our treatment is stabilize you chemically, but not give you so much more that your deficit continues to worsen. And it allows you time to go and set your affairs straight, that you build a supportive system around you and get back on your feet. So that dialogue changes, like I see the light come on the eyes on so many of my patients, that it's there, that it's not all them. They carry such a guilt that I am the reason why all bad things are happening to me. And I think I see a parallel in that to myself as well. Like I didn't seek out help when I needed it because I felt guilty. So I can relate to them. So maybe that was the blessing of my hardship.
You were going through the journey in order to be able to be on the other side of your journey, to be able to help those on this part of their journey. Interesting. Alrighty. So now, you have been working, and then you in the homeless shelters, you were helping with the addiction, and then you went addiction medicine, and then you went ahead and got additional training, and then became the medical director at the methadone clinic.
I didn't need to get additional training, just like the work that I was doing, definitely getting the extra CMEs. And I guess like going to those classes, that taught me the knowledge I needed. Because I'm working on getting the grandfathered in pathway, because I've done it long enough. I need to pass my test, and then I should be able to become the subspecialist, certificate on the wall.
You have the boots on the ground. So just you look, the paper on the wall does not negate the boots on the ground that you've been doing for so many years.
Yeah.
Like you are the person who you talked about, who you're at that part with the expert knowledge that you can impart to that young fresh mind,
Yeah.
the person who wants to know, so you are the boots on the ground, so you've done it. Now you also mentioned startups, and we've mentioned going through postpartum depression as one of the things that you've been able to navigate through. Now, the challenging thing about life is that once you go through one challenge, you're like, whoo, pat myself on the back. But other challenges are waiting for you
Yeah.
further down the line. And you would think that because I was able to manage one, I'd be able to manage the other. So tell us, how is it that the postpartum depression, like what part of this journey that we've just talked about, did that come in? And then what is it that you did to be able to overcome that?
Yeah. Great question. And I think we need to talk more about postpartum depression and anxiety. So thank you for asking that question.
Mm-hmm.
I think when I encountered it, definitely I had a little bit of it with my first baby, but once again, I had my blinders on where I had to keep going, and finish my NHSC service requirement that was due. So I didn't have time to pause and think. So I had not only completely recovered from my PTSD from residency, I'm still going. And then when my second baby happens, and he had to be an emergency C-section because none of my babies want to come out into the world. One had to be yanked out and one had to be cut out. So it just really, like, I think I got the full blow of it because my body just like got very swollen.
Mm-hmm.
This last pregnancy was a little complicated. We know gestational diabetes, and I was holding fluid everywhere. And then during C-section, they also had to pump in a lot of fluid into me. So like a few days after post-delivery, my body was, I didn't recognize it.
Mm-hmm.
My hormones definitely, I'm like happy one moment, next moment I'm like snapping at everybody. And then the other part of it was definitely my mind was just all over the place. Like I don't want to go through that again, but I did end up reaching out to my OB-GYN, and they had the nurse practitioner. They followed up with me. My pediatrician, my baby's pediatrician, amazing, amazing woman, amazing physician and inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
She also could tell because we serve in the community, like before in our Muslim community. And she's like, you don't look right. Are you okay?
Mm.
I guess I'm an open book. You can tell
You
what's
just see
happening
it on your face. Yes.
yeah. So, all that happened. And my loved ones around me, they were gathering together to support me. But I was a fire breathing dragon,
Mm.
snapping at anybody that was coming my way. So they were also feeling frustrated. So then I did end up going on medicine because when you need help,
Mm-hmm.
take help. That's what I've learned from my past, is that it's okay to acknowledge that things are not going right and to
Mm-hmm.
accept help. Um, it felt like my feet were like swollen, so it felt very uncomfortable. And at night, when I would lay down, my chest would feel so heavy. It felt like, what they say, an elephant is sitting on your chest. I felt that. I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
breathe. And there were a few times when I was like, I think I'm gonna die. you know,
Oh,
thoughts of death were very frequent, and I was imagining things like my children having to grow up without me. Like your mind does
like some
crazy
intrusions, like
things.
those what we call those intrusive thoughts were just
Yeah.
like pushing their way in, and you're telling it, no, this is not right. But it's kind of like that
Sometimes you don't even
door.
have a defense. You just like
Yeah.
watch it happen in front of you, like it happens in front of you, like in a movie screen. You just see like all
Mhm.
these scenes passing and all these thoughts. You don't have control over yourself. Sometimes it
Mhm.
felt like, you know like my mom, she would be trying to help me do something with the baby or trying to help me around the house, and I would be snapping at her, and she'd be like, why are you being so mean? Like, we raised kids too. And I'm like, if you raised kids and you don't like it, you don't have to be here, just go somewhere else. And they didn't feel that, understand that. Um,
Mhm.
and so people around you sometimes don't understand, but it's okay to go back and tell them sorry later.
Yes.
But I think the big thing that really changed for me was my awakening as an entrepreneur.
Mm.
It happened during that time. And I think that is what really helped me grow and transform was, at that time, I definitely felt that I had plateaued, that, my growth and my ability to serve, that was it. And now I mean, definitely I had so many blessings in my life. I had two beautiful, healthy children. I had a loving partner who didn't leave me. We survived. And then I had family around me who loved about me, cared about me. We had a house. We had
Mhm.
purchased our first house. I didn't have any student loans. I had a car. I had food. And so, at that time, it felt, it is what everybody strives for.
Yes.
I had all of it. And that made me depressed.
Because you still weren't at, you're like, well, I've now gotten to this phase. I've checked off all these boxes,
Yeah,
but
had a great job. I felt appreciated. I had
mm,
support. So there was nothing left to ask for in life. But I felt ungrateful that I have
mhm,
all of this. Now, do I just go on cruise control, go on vacations and just enjoy it and save money for kids and just, just keep going paycheck to paycheck, show up, invitations, parties, etc. Just didn't feel right because I see all the things that are happening around me in the world,
mhm,
wars, famines, plastic pollution, global warming. And here I have two new lives in my hands, and they are the start of a lineage. And they're going to have a day where there will be no bees or butterflies. What if they don't?
mhm,
All these thoughts were coming in on the nights when I couldn't sleep. And because I had that elephant sitting on my chest, right? Every
mhm,
anxious feeling just came rushing out. Like
mm,
there was just no more barriers left, no distractions left. And so then I started to realize is that I need to do more. And then a Muslim scholar who was crucial to my growth back in my college days, which were some of my best days in life when I attended those classes, he died 11 days before my birthday. And that kind of woke me up that
mhm,
he accomplished so much in 25 years, 25 to 22 years. He changed the way a lot of modern Islamic knowledge is delivered, and I
mhm,
was impacted by it, and the standards had changed. So he had that type of influence in such a short amount of time. I wanted to do something like that, and that
mhm.
the entrepreneurial Sarah awoke, and you know,
She
it's
hasn't turned back.
and it is an amazing feeling, Dr. Beckford.
Mhm,
Feel the way that I've changed in the past year and a half. I mean, I consumed knowledge voraciously. I allowed myself to dream big and see myself actually making a difference, even if it's not just by myself, but to be able to set up those systems, change others' mindsets, help them see this amazing power that we have in ourselves. If only we allow ourselves to validate ourselves internally instead of waiting for
mhm,
others to give us approval and permission to go forth and do it. If we allow ourselves to feel selfish enough to invest in ourselves so we can
mhm.
continue to give, if we allow ourselves to tap into the power that we all
Yes.
have, because we all are very powerful, and we can just leave an amazing legacy. And you know, since I started that journey of changing myself from the inside, those thoughts of anxiety and depression, like like as I have gone up, my anxiety and depression have plateaued.
Mhm.
I feel sad because humans, we will have these
Absolutely. Yeah,
and
we're not made to just be in one zone.
yeah, we're not
Yeah,
robots,
absolutely.
right? But I feel more empowered in how I show up,
Hmm.
what I say, and how I act. And it's something that I'm trying to now propagate and pass on as well.
I love it. I love it. It's just so powerful how you see what one portion of your life, the journey that's there to help you through another portion of your life. And then also recognizing in between when you need the help. Because there are a lot of times we said, well, I can build and pull from this particular part and I can get it through. But once you've exhausted all of your tools within your toolkit, then you seek the help. You sought help and then you're able to restore yourself back to Sarah. We're finding Sarah. And then you find your passion. And the only way that you were able to get that is to be able to have some clarity. When your mind is fighting, there's no way for you to have peace. There's no way for you to be still and to think with clarity as to my next step. So you were able to do that. And then your next step is into entrepreneurship, which now is bringing so much fulfillment because you see the impact that you can have on others. And all the thoughts, you can now say, well, I cannot come up with solutions for this. And I can now feel that I am giving back in additional and in a way that's now meaningful to me, right? So it's not that all the other things weren't meaningful. Yes, they are, but you go through different phases because Sarah in her teens, in her 20s, in the 30s, we're all different people. We build upon each other, but we're different people. And what we want to give back to the world changes as we change and as we grow. And so now you're able to do that through entrepreneurship. I love it. I love, love, love.
Thank you. And I love the way you summarized it. Thank you for that beautiful summary. It really encapsulates it very well.
Absolutely. So now we're on this and we have our fun question of the day. All righty. So our fun question of the day is, and I have to think about it because you've done some things. So I always listen to the conversation. So if you weren't a doctor or an engineer, snatch two things off right immediately.
Yeah.
And director of the methadone clinic, you're not, well, everything kind of comes down to entrepreneurship. So I won't pull that off. I know you're lucky. Don't worry.
Okay.
But if you weren't all the other things, what would you be?
That's the hardest question because I feel like I am being everything I want to be. I think the only thing that's left that I haven't done anything about is being an astronaut.
Well, there we go. I should have pulled that one off. Oh, that's where we started.
That's where we started. But here's the funny thing. I am not tall enough to be an astronaut.
How tall are you?
I'm 4 feet and 11, but okay. I think the height requirement is like 5 feet 2 or 3 inches. So I'm quite
far. So you and I got wiped off the astronaut list. Don't worry. We'll sit beside each other and watch the others.
Yeah, I'll continue to serve here on Earth.
We'll continue to serve here on Earth as those. Yeah, I'm not tall enough either, so don't worry.
How tall are you?
5'1".
You know what? I will still look up to you.
Oh, how sweet. We'll just hug. Yeah. I love it. I love it. So there's so many who are watching who have been impacted by this wonderful journey of yours. You know, the ups, the downs, the challenges, the triumphs that you've had. And they're sitting and they're like, oh my gosh, she has a clinic that she's opening? Oh my God, I can't wait.
Yeah.
How can I find her? Let us know. How can they find you?
Oh, goodness. Yeah. My clinic, I don't have the connection set up for that yet. So just email me at sarahnasirdo@gmail.com. That's, let me see, SARAHNASIRDO@gmail.com. If you're interested in my coaching program and becoming a transcendent yourself by overcoming the limits that hold you back. It can be the voices inside you. It can be the voices around you that keeps you from tapping into your power to live a purpose-led life that is filling, thrilling, full of adventure. Email me at transcendentyou@gmail.com.
So that's Transcendent YOU at Gmail.
YOU. Yes.
At
And
Gmail.
remember this misspelling right here, that's
Thank you.
intentional because I want to create transcendence, and the transcendent is a person who transcends their limits.
Love it. Transcendent you at gmail.com. So, for those who have been watching, those of you who are listening, if you are ready to transcend and to be part of her wonderful coaching program, go ahead and contact Dr. Nasir at transcendentyou at gmail.com. Right. So, for those who are just want to be part of her world, any social media handles that they can reach out to you on if they're like, I want to follow her. I want to see, I want to
Yeah.
be part of the world.
I would love it. I would love it. I would love to have you, interact with me on my social media and share your stories, share your thoughts, because, that's what we are. Each human life is a beautiful story, and I want to hear yours. So my social media handles are, I'm on Facebook and on Instagram, and it's basically Transcendent You.
Okay, so Transcendent You, if you're on Instagram or on Facebook, to connect with Dr. Nasir. Thank you so much, Dr. Nasir. I think this was a wonderful conversation, so heartfelt, so much depth, going through the ups and downs and the challenges. And these are real challenges that we go through, we face in life. This was not blushed over a cookie cutter. We really, really went to the heart of it. And I really love that you, are helping others to transcend and to be the best version of themselves. So like you said, purpose driven life, to overcome whatever it is that's going on in their life right now. So thank you so much. Any last words of advice, wisdom, anything for those who are watching right now?
For sure. Here's something I tell myself because I know I'm still growing, and I want you to leave with this as well, is remember, you are a greatness in progress.
Love it. Yes. We are all in progress, and the greatness in progress. Just keep that in mind because whatever it is right now, we're building to even greater and greater things. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Nasir. Thank you so much for those who are watching. I know you're like, oh, here we go. You know how Dr. Beckford is. This great conversation, and I just caught the end of it. Have no fear. This wonderful convo is available on our Your Caring Docs website. Just go to urcaringdocs.com. Select podcast. You'll see Dr. Nasir's beautiful face. Download and to send it to 10 of your friends because there's so many of us who've been on this journey and there's so many who will be on the journey going through life. Use it as an inspiration to get them through. Now, if you would like to be on the show, send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com to book. Now, if you're also like, okay, you are a dynamic speaker, and I'm like, yes, I am. And if you're like, hey, I really love your energy, I would love for you to be part of my next event, especially if it's on stress management and burnout prevention, then I'd love, love, love to be part of your event. Send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com. Just let me know event or say, hey, I'd love for us to connect and see how we can make that happen. I'm Dr. Tamara Beckford. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And thank you, Dr. Nasir, for being part of this wonderful show and sharing your stories with us. I'll see you guys next time. You guys have a wonderful, wonderful week. Bye.